Welcome to another DK Custom Products video. My name is Kevin. This is Dwayne.
Yeah, and for some reason or another, gas prices are not going down anytime soon. So we're going to give you guys 10 things you can do to increase your miles per gallon.
For some reason or another?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to go there?
No.
Okay. So we're going to go through a list of 10 things that you can do, that any of us can do, that all of us should be doing to increase miles per gallon.
Right. And most of these are fairly cheap, reasonable methods to achieve, a better mile per gallon. But before we get to that list, if you guys would like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, it would really help us out.
So the first is, and possibly one of the most important, is tire pressure.
Right. Not only most important, probably most overlooked, because I admit I neglect to check my tire pressure often. I do it occasionally. If it looks a little flat, I'm gonna check it. But other than that, I kind of let it ride. And that's a bad habit. I need to break it.
And we're going to do a whole video on tire pressure. But just to give an example of one of the reasons why it's so important to check it is, on average, the average tire loses 1 pound, 1 PSI per month just sitting. So tire pressure, important. Number two, what's number two?
And that would be that M word, maintenance. And in particular, an overdue filter that needs to be cleaned. The oil filter may need to be cleaned, or the oil filter isn't adequately doing its job.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of things that fall under maintenance. You want to, spark plug wires wear out. Some people, I was answering a question the other day. A guy was surprised that spark plug wires wear out. They're rubber.
Yeah,
they wear out.
Yeah.
They weather. Spark plugs wear out. So obviously changing the oil, like you said, cleaning the filters, making sure that your brakes are functioning well. Not only are they stopping you, but they're not creating drag as you're going down the road when they're not on.
Right. Just the smallest amount of excessive drag, that adds up over several hundred miles. And while you're at it, check your bearings.
Yep.
You want that wheel to be rolling very freely, no friction. And, that's going to equate to just a little increased miles per gallon, but a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. It adds up to a big increase.
Number three is to have a good tune.
Right. Fuel management is very important. When Harley puts these bikes out from the factory, their number one goal is to pass EPA compliance. It's not fuel economy, it's not performance, it's to pass that EPA test.
Right. And so a bike that is running well, that is running strong, will actually get better miles per gallon than a bike that is running too lean.
That's correct. Because you say, well, you give it more fuel, how does that relate to miles per gallon increase? Well, because a bike doesn't have to work as hard to produce performance. And if it doesn't have to work as hard, it's not going to use as much fuel.
And the perfect example of that is when people have a bone stock Harley, with the stock everything, including stock tune, and they add the XIDs or the VIDs to it, they're going to have more power, and they're going to get anywhere from a half a mile to a mile and a half per gallon better if they ride the same. Now, what happens when people get more power? They play with the wrist more, so they don't necessarily get better miles per gallon. But all things being equal, you'll get better miles per gallon out of a bike that is tuned well.
So that brings us to number 4, a free-flowing exhaust system. Always ensure you have a free-flowing exhaust system. If you have a full stock exhaust, you do not have a free-flowing exhaust system.
And not only free-flowing, but also no reversion.
Right, anti-reversion. Reversion is a big deal. Again, optimizing performance is key to increasing fuel economy.
So free-flowing exhaust that also is absent of reversion, there's a video on that up in the corner.
Right.
And the fifth thing that you can do is have a good free-flowing air cleaner.
Right, and we mentioned earlier, keeping your air filter element clean, but, you can compound that by getting a really free-flowing air filter that doesn't vent the crankcases internally and compromise air intake quality. That goes a long way. It's one of those little things that makes a huge difference. And as you guys know, we have a multitude of videos on that subject as well.
We'll put one of them up in the corner. And number six is an external breather system.
Right, just like I just said, venting the crankcase gases externally, it's a big benefit.
Yeah, and real quick, there's 3 things. We're going to put a whole video on it up in the corner here, but there's 3 things. When you don't vent externally, you're putting hot, oily, oxygen depleted air. Hot air is bad for power. Oil is bad for power. It's supposed to be air and gas.
Yeah.
And then oxygen depleted air is bad because it's the oxygen in the air that creates the combustion.
Right. And then I think, just to add to that, I think the biggest thing, the most detrimental thing that most people don't realize, feeding that oil carryover into your intake, it starts to build up on the piston. That displaces volume. Essentially, it makes the piston taller. If your bike's not tuned for that increased compression, it throws off the timing, throws off fuel delivery, and it just degrades performance over time.
And the bottom line is you're going to get less miles per gallon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. And number 7 is optimum engine temperature. Have your bike running at the optimum engine temperature, which Harley says, and you can put it up on the screen here, Dwayne. Harley says that's 230 degrees. And according to Harley and according to our studies show the same thing, the optimum normal operating temperature for a Harley engine is 230 degrees.
Right. And if your engine's getting hotter than that, excessively hotter than that, you got bigger problems in fuel economy. You need to be worried about the life of that engine. And we have a whole video series on keeping your big twin engine cool. And number 8, operating your motorcycle in the correct gear or RPM, matching the speed you're traveling and the conditions you're accelerating under. Being in the proper RPM range is key.
Right. And you don't want to lug the bike?
Nope.
You don't want to over rev the bike?
Nope.
We're talking about, first of all, you never want to lug the bike. But you can have some fun revving it up higher. But we're talking about how to get better miles per gallon. So you want to find that sweet spot where you're not lugging the bike, where you're not over revving it for your needs. Okay. And find that sweet spot that, and it's different for a Sportster than an 88 twin cam, than a 96 twin cam, than a 103 twin cam, or than a 107 M8 or a 114 M8, or even a 131 M8. And so you want to find that sweet spot. And so one of the tricks that people do who want to increase their miles per gallon is they start keeping a log.
Yeah.
They keep a log every time they fill up, how many gallons they used, how many miles they went, use their trip meter. And once you do that, it'll help you be more aware of your miles per gallon. And you might learn where that sweet spot is RPM wise for your particular bike.
Right.
And number 9, reduce drag.
Right. Well, being more aerodynamic, sort of a counterintuitive subject when you're talking about a Harley, which is essentially a brick moving down the highway.
There's a few things on aerodynamics. Number 1, if you're serious about getting better miles per gallon, different jackets have different amount of drag. How you sit has a different amount of drag. What helmet you wear, different amount of drag. Okay? If you use a windshield, what kind of windshield? And there is almost twice the amount of wind resistance at 70 miles per hour as 50 miles per hour.
Right, it's definitely not linear. You can go from 1 to 20, not much wind resistance. That's just an increase of 20 miles per hour. You jump from 50 to 70, it's like being on the front of a freight train, especially on some bikes.
So just look at what you can do to reduce drag and reduce weight on the bike, and that will increase your miles per gallon. And last but not least is number 10, gas. The gas that you're putting in the bike.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, and it's hard to keep up with. The octane may be labeled, it may not be correct. There's a winter mix, a summer mix. There's a lot of factors.
There's old gas stations that have a bunch of garbage in their tanks. There's new gas stations. So use a good quality, high octane gas. You will get better miles per gallon. The other thing is, if you get bad gas, there's octane boosters that you can use. There's also additives that you can put in. Every 10, 20, 30 tanks, put in an additive that will clean the sensors up and clean up the fuel injectors and just keep things running clean in there.
Right. All right, so that was 10 things you can do to increase fuel economy. But we have a bonus thing you can do, and a lot of people overlook this. I'm probably pretty bad about it myself, and that's your throttle control.
Riding for me is 90% about fun.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't even have a vehicle. My wife has a truck. I have 4 motorcycles. So it's obviously my transportation, but I chose that to be my transportation because it's fun. You know, that's sort of at cross purposes a lot of time with getting better miles per gallon.
Right.
But the more you keep your wrist out of it, the more you accelerate steadily and don't just romp on it. But another thing is how fast you decelerate also. I mean, anticipate stoplights. Don't get right up on tailgating somebody and then have them slam on their brakes, take a chance of rear-ending them, and you're gassing it, then putting on the brakes, gassing it, and putting on the brakes. Anticipate what's ahead of you, and if you see the light turning yellow and then red, let up on the gas then and coast up to that. So, you know, just ride smart and use only the fuel you need to get to where you're going. Sort of not as much fun, but your bike will last longer and you'll definitely get better miles.
Yeah, definitely not as much fun. Because remember, it's not illegal to see how fast you can get up to the speed limit.
So there you have it. There's a bunch of videos that we've linked up in the corner that go more into detail. We're going to be doing a video on PSI in the tires because that's really, really important. We want to look at the details on that. We're also going to do a video on how to clean your cleanable air filter. And once we get those videos done, we'll link them in the description below.
Y'all ride safe out there.